Radio Lomax, l'émission du 106.
Depuis la fin des années 80, il arpente les scènes du monde entier au service d'une vision sauvage et libre du rock'n'roll. C'est Jim Jones. Et Jim Jones, c'est The Hypnotics, Black Moses, The Righteous Mind et bien sûr Jim Jones Revue qui a écumé club et festival chez nous en laissant des souvenirs plutôt impérissables. Il est constamment en train de se renouveler tout en gardant sa patte furax. C'est du côté du R&B de Stax ou de Chess Records qu'il puise son inspiration pour sa nouvelle incarnation, Jim Jones All Stars. Bienvenue, welcome.
Radio Lomax, l'émission du 106.
Thank you.
Avec plaisir.
Okay, so let's unfold the story of the creation of the All Stars for those who might have skipped, the COVID chapter.
Yeah. It's a bit boring, really, the whole, every time you talk about COVID now. But yeah, just to quickly go back over it. Mm-hmm. I had a project called The Righteous Mind, and we were, we'd recorded 2 albums and we were working on new stuff, and then the COVID hit, and we were in the process of organizing visas to go to America, which was a great opportunity. And like many people, we lost all of the momentum, everything that was going on. And I guess it was about a year into the whole thing when things were just starting to happen again, and a friend of mine programs the Wilderness Festival, and he said, "Can you come and play the Wilderness Festival?" And I said, not with my band. The guitar player is married to a woman who has diabetes of the kind that if she were to contract COVID, it could be very, life-threatening, and lots of other things. Everybody had to find something else to do, like you will remember. But so I said no, and then he called back again. He's like, "Are you sure? Can you do something?" And no, I can't do it. And then he called again and said, like, "Hey, what about, can you just put a band of guys together and play for an hour? I think you would be perfect for this headline set of this area of the Wilderness Festival." So I was like, "Okay, look, let me send some messages, and if everybody wants to do it, then we'll do it." And I said to myself, if just one person is like complaining or like, "Oh, fuck, yeah, does that mean, I'm going to be like, forget it, I just don't want the headache." But everybody was great. And suddenly I ended up with like I think for that show, like 12 musicians. Wow. Yeah, because I had like 5 saxophones and the rest of the regular band. Anyway, so everyone said yes, and everyone was up for it, and we learned these songs. And just to make it quick, we just learned a bunch of cover songs.
Okay.
I think maybe I can't remember. Maybe did 1 or 2 songs from my previous past. I can't remember which. Maybe Shakedown or something, because I thought it would sound good with the horns.
Okay.
And so we did the show, and it went good. And shortly afterwards, someone got in touch, said, "Would you guys like to play here?" And I was like, "Well, it's not really a band, but let's see." And I spoke to the guys, and Stuart Dace, who is the tenor saxophone player, he was kind of like the first one in. Gavin has been with me since the Jim Jones Revue, so if whenever I'm doing something, basically Gavin's going to be involved. But those 2 were the first 2. But Stuart said to me, he's like, "Look, if we've gone to the trouble of learning this stuff and we got it under our fingers, just do some more shows." And again, I thought like, okay, I'm going to ask the guys, do they want to play? If one person complains, I'm going to just say no, because I don't want to chase people or any of that. And everyone said yes, and the show was great, and it was easy, and so it kept going like that, And then a good friend of mine from America was calling me and saying, "I'm looking at your film of your new band and listening to the stuff. I really think you should record an album, and I really think the kind of thing you're doing would be perfect to do in the South. Come down in the South." And he's based in Atlanta, and he said we can look in Atlanta. It's very close to Memphis. We're close to Nashville. We're close, we can look into it. We went to Alabama and we looked at Muscle Shoals. Anyway, I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to do that? And didn't really think much else. And then he sent me plane tickets, you know, like let's go and look at some studios. Do you have another question, or should I just keep talking?
Oh, you guessed my next one. So
yeah, because
yes.
the whole story just connects
Oh,
together.
okay, yeah.
So I'll just keep going.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you about the recording process. So it's
Yeah.
it's good.
So the first thing we did was I met with John Getz, who's to be running the label, and he's the producer for what we're doing, and we were talking about what we thought it should be, what it shouldn't be, who it would be, and we just looked at lots of studios, you know, and we went into some incredible, you know, studios that have a legacy of music in them. And I remember we were in Muscle Shoals at Fame Studios, and this is where Wilson Pickett did Land of a Thousand Dances, and, you know, Aretha did like the first sessions there for that Stax stuff, and not Stax, with, you know, the Jerry Wexler stuff. Anyway, I said to the guy, like, when you're working on the drums, you know, like, where do you set up and what mics do you use? And I was asking technical questions for the sound, and he said, well, like, hey, you know, we just had a band in from Texas. Yes. I got the tapes, you know, in the room. Do you want me to put the tapes on and you can listen to the drum sound? I was like, well, that's really kind. And he put them on and they sounded really good. But to me, they sounded like really normal and average and didn't sound like 50s, 60s rock and roll and soul. And that's a particular sound. And I realized if we were going to book this studio, we would have to bring in our own engineer, who kind of is, you know, versed in getting that kind of sound. And the person that everybody was recommending, you know, we got recommendations from J.D. McPherson and Nick Waterhouse, and all these guys were saying like, oh, you have to use this guy, Scott McEwen. And we got in touch with Scott McEwen, and he has his own studio in Memphis called Memphis Magnetic. And the studio, it's as big as this space you can see out here, based on the dimensions from the RCA Studio 2, which is where many great recordings have been done. And he rebuilt it to the same dimensions, and he had a great locker full of vintage microphones, and he's going on to old Ampex gear, you know, he's going on to tape machine, 2-inch 16 track, you know, which is, you know, a lot of people think the best bang for your buck with tape. And he was very well versed and experienced in the kind of stuff that we were looking at. So we said it just doesn't make any sense to go anywhere else. You know, this is the guy. And on top of that, I mean, we'll be in the heart of Memphis, you know, and that's fantastic too. So we decided, okay, this is it. And again, you know, I said to John Getz, like, okay, thanks, but I was like, you know, whether this happens or not, that was a nice trip and a good thing, but. Yeah, next thing he's like, can everybody look at their schedules? You know, like, what about this time between May? And we all agreed on the right time, and everyone flew out to do the sessions. Shall I keep going on the story? Yeah. You want me to keep going, or you have another question? You can put the questions in later, can't you?
Yeah, I can make a list after
them
and let people, you know, fill in the blanks. Now, I was just going to ask you, how being uprooted from, you know, your usual place of creation, being London, I guess, affects creativity.
Yeah. Well, good, you know, because you're in a place of wonderment, you know, where everything feels quite magical. But in terms of the seed of the creation, I worked quite hard to come up with a dozen ideas for songs that could work. While at my, I have a little home studio where I live in London. And so I made demos, and I had the drummer Chris make up drum loops for me, you know, with the kind of grooves that I wanted. And then I would work the rest from my little studio. And so we had that as a starting point, and we'd had several rehearsals. So we got there with the songs that were kind of half
half
done,
finished.
yes.
Yes.
On purpose, by design. We didn't want to finish anything because we wanted to wait and see what the studio was
what
like,
happened,
and get the feeling of the place. And wow, it's interesting to say because, like I was saying, it's quite magical, especially somewhere like Memphis. Scott is friends with everyone in town, and so, when we would finish work in the day, he would call up his friend and we would go over to Sun Studios and get a lock-in. They would and we would have some drinks and play on the instruments and just hang around in Sun Studio. So it's very privileged and very magical, like a Disneyland kind of place. But, one night at the studio, I stayed at the studio and everyone went home. I said, I'm going to sleep here tonight. And, I was sitting outside the back of the studio and there was a big storm coming in. It was Memphis skies and we were quite near, a freight train track, and you can hear this whoa, whoa, the train going and thunderstorm coming in over here, and really culturally sort of thrilling kind of, absorb heavy weather, heavy humidity. And I said, I'm just going to sit here and have a beer and watch the storm and everyone left, and then I got a phone call from Scott from the studio about 5 minutes later, and he said, Jim, are you still outside the studio? Yeah. And he said, do me a favor, go inside and lock the door with you, and I was like, okay, man, what's going on? So like, well, get yourself inside. And so I went in, shut the door. Is it locked? Yeah. Okay. He's like, okay. He said, I've just driven past when we were going home, and I've seen half a dozen teenagers with AR-15s carjacking a car next door to the studio. And he said, there's an alleyway that runs from that place round to the back where you're sitting. If they run for some reason, round there and you're sitting on your own with the studio door open and everything, so it might end badly. So, so it's like, okay, I'm just going to listen to the storm from inside the room tonight.
It might be
but
preferable.
it was a wake up call that, for us, it was like a Disneyland, Memphis. All this history and great, okay, and then it was like, the reality is there's still poverty and there's still crime and there's still, all of the things that you get with a city, particularly one that's been through, financial hardships.
Of course.
I'd been in Memphis about 6 or 7 years earlier, maybe more. And it was like a ghost town with, cracks in the road with grass growing up in the middle of where you're driving, on the main roads.
Like Detroit, more or less.
Exactly, and but when we went back there, Memphis is going through, like a lot of places, a sort of, not a gentrification, although there are areas which are probably there's some resentment for, like money coming in. There's definitely sort of like, some hipster coffee shops, and there's always been great record stores there, like Ghana Records, those kind of places. And all great, but it was, when I was there before, it was like a sort of, a museum. The town was, you go to Stax, you go to Sun, you go to the Ghana Records, you check out some of these barbecue places and the bars, and other than that, people living there you don't really see. But when we were there, it was like, it felt like there's some growth and things buzzing and new developments. And but yes, still there's this element of like any area of poverty-stricken areas of big cities, you're going to see that kind of thing. So it was a wake-up call for us.
It resonates strangely with the album title "Ain't No Peril." In my opinion, it really kind of mirrors what you just said.
Sure, yeah,
because
yeah.
Can we really trust the title? I don't think so. When
Yeah.
you see the big cat and all, I'm like,
yeah. I mean, the kind of it can mean a lot of things, but I take it to mean kind of, nothing's going to stop me, There ain't no peril that's going to kind of stop me from a bit like the Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell, ain't no mountain high enough, there's nothing going to keep you know, don't let, and the message is don't let anything get in your way, you know. That's not to say just walk under a bus, you know, kind of take care of yourself.
Okay, yeah. We have to talk about the way you cover songs, because it is in the very, I would say, the womb of the band is covers, as you just said a few minutes ago. And I saw you on stage cover, I don't know, The Velvet Underground, Little Richard, and here you cover Troglodyte, sorry, by Jimmy Castor.
Jimmy Castor, yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, mind-blowing. It reminds me of early Psychic TV, you know, like really primal,
Thank you,
beat, druidic stuff.
Yeah,
I love this song. So every time you add something to the song you cover, how do you do that?
I think it's just the way we play it, and then I'm quite, you know, sensitive to whether I think it's rock and roll, you know.
Okay.
And I can tell if, you know, it's a really difficult thing doing covers, because you can very easily sound like a wedding band, you know what I mean? Or, you know, one of those, like a club's covers band, which is like nothing wrong with that. But to me, it's sort of like, that's not the music that I want to do music that has a sense of, you know, anything could happen, you know, a little bit of jeopardy, maybe is the wrong word, but like a little bit of danger to the musically. It sounds a bit more unhinged. And so if I feel like something sounds too neat and tidy and polite,
it's not for
we won't do that one. You know, we tried some songs that, you know,
you have to,
which one did we want to do? I think Everyone's a Winner by Hot Chocolate, you know. And we played it. It sounded all right, but it just it didn't sound wild enough to me for us to stick with it.
It's sorry if I may add, it's like the image of, in my opinion, you insert yourself along tradition, you know, and adding to it. You do that quite very, very well, you know. You pay homage to a certain legendary catalog.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are yourself, and you constantly give new things to hear.
Thank you.
I think.
While you're saying that, it's making me think about more and more with the art culture, particularly films now. There's more and more of a culture of like, you get, you know, a classic story, like a classic movie. And now you're going to get someone doing like an origin story, or, now it's the story from the point of view, or, you know, like if it's Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. Now here's the story from the point of view of the wolf, you know, or the point, and it's like they're going into the same territory, but finding a new way to, you know, kind of
new angles.
Look from this side and look from the, and you know, and sort of a new way to experience it, which is maybe becoming. It hadn't occurred to me, but I was talking with my drummer's got lots of ideas for film scripts and things like that, and that the way that things can be. It's very typical to see something being reimagined now, you know, and into brilliant effect sometimes, you know.
Sure.
And hopefully we bring something enough, you know, that makes it feel like you're seeing something vital again, and not just a nostalgia.
Yeah. Okay. And a last one before I let you have some rest.
Okay.
Before the show.
Yeah. No, it's a pleasure talking to you.
How can I give you the grease? I wish I could, but tell me how.
Any way you can. I mean, like the thing, the producer John Getz, you know, I was talking to him back and forth, and one of the things that I really wanted to capture from the recording was in Memphis, like I was describing the weather.
Yes.
And the atmospheric conditions, and they have like a heavy humidity there. The Mississippi River runs by, and you know, I don't know if it's, you know, there's mountains over here and you get the storms coming in here, but the air feels like it's got some density, very heavy, very greasy kind of.
Okay.
And you can kind of hear it in the sound. It's interesting. When we were driving into Memphis to do the session with the whole go. We were listening to, I think it was like Robert Gordon, who wrote It Came From Memphis, the author. And he had listed out songs that were classic Memphis songs. And I think we were listening to those as we came in. And I started to kind of notice, it's like, the decay on a snare drum,
Okay.
like you go, the decay has a certain, like
like a quality to
the
it.
timing of it and the sound of it, has this kind of like slightly dampened, greasy kind of. And as we were driving in and listening to the sounds from our tour bus,
Yeah, because music is air moving.
I was like, I can hear the same, like the sound of the tires moving, reflecting off that fence. It has the same kind of decay. I don't know if I'm going off on one here, but in my head, I could hear it. And it was one of the things I was describe as heaviness or a kind of greasiness. And so I was saying to John Getz, the grease, we've got to make sure we got the grease on the record, someone who can, give me the sound, give me the grease, So it was really about the sound, but obviously there's an expression they use in America, like, you have to grease someone's palm if you want a favor.
Okay.
Or grease the wheels. It's like a sort of a business thing. You have to do a favor to get a favor.
Is this like a pimp style shit?
Yeah,
I don't know.
probably.
Maybe?
People talk and they say like, who do we see for that? And it's like, you've got to see, Johnson. It's like, I got to grease Johnson for this. I've got to be nice to that guy to try and get, but not just being nice. It sort of also means, pay me, right? But also, kind of anything you want. And obviously being music and rock and roll, there's got to be like a sexual innuendo. Otherwise there's no point, being in a rock and roll band. That's like part of the whole thing, like some kind of sexual innuendo in whatever you're talking about. Otherwise it ain't the blues. So that's the grease, so you could give me some money or like a friendly, comment, or a hand job. Maybe not,
Oh, who knows?
Who knows?
Anything can happen.
The night is young. Yeah.
Yes, but I'm not that young anymore.
No.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Very, very, very much for your
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Have a great weekend, guys, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.